On a war-torn battlefield, a soldier is trapped, surrounded by chaos, his life hanging by a thread. From the smoke and destruction emerges an unlikely savior, a horse charging into danger. To pull him to safety, years later, that soldier is a veteran searching for a sense of purpose, unaware that fate is about to bring him face to face with the animal who once saved his life. Get ready for a story of courage, resilience, and a bond that defies time. What happens when they reunite will move you to tears. The battlefield was chaos incarnate. Explosions thundered in the distance, and the acrid smell of smoke filled the air. Private James Jamie Callahan lay sprawled on the ground, his leg pinned beneath a piece of debris from a nearby blast. Pain shot through his body as he struggled to move. The sounds of shouting and gunfire closed in around him. Help! Jamie's voice cracked as he yelled into the smoke-filled void, but in the chaos of war, his cries were drowned out by the cacophony of destruction. Then, through the haze, he saw it, a silhouette, large, steady, and impossibly calm amidst the chaos. A horse, chestnut in color, its coat streaked with mud and sweat, emerged from the smoke. Jamie blinked, sure he was hallucinating, but the animal moved with purpose, its eyes locked on him as if it understood the gravity of the moment. The horse stopped a few feet away, nudging Jamie with its muzzle. It wasn't a war-trained mount. It had no saddle, no bridle, but it exuded a courage Jamie couldn't fathom. He reached up, gripping its mane with trembling hands. "You're real," he whispered, a mix of disbelief and desperation. With an almost human-like determination, the horse lowered itself, allowing Jamie to pull himself onto its back. The pain in his leg was excruciating, but adrenaline propelled him forward. The horse rose, pivoted, and galloped away from the battlefield, weaving through gunfire and debris as if guided by some unseen force. Years later, that moment remained etched in Jamie's memory. After his honorable discharge, he tried to move on, to find a life outside of the military. But the shadows of the past lingered, and the face of the horse that had saved him haunted his dreams. He never learned its fate. In the chaos of his evacuation, it had vanished like a guardian angel returning to the ether. Now, Jamie lived a quiet life in rural Montana, working odd jobs on local ranches to keep himself busy. His limp, a reminder of that fateful day, had become part of him, a physical manifestation of the scars he carried inside. He rarely spoke of the war or the horse. It was easier that way. One summer evening, while repairing a fence at the edge of a sprawling property, Jamie overheard two ranch hands talking by the barn. "You hear about that old horse they're bringing in tomorrow?" one said, leaning on a pitchfork. "Yeah," the other replied. "Rescued from a kill pen," they said. "Used to be a cavalry horse back in the day. Sad. Been through hell, and now it's just wasting away." Jamie froze, the words striking a chord deep within him. "A cavalry horse?" he asked, stepping closer. The ranch hand nodded. "That's what they said. Chestnut gelding. Supposed to be tough as nails." Why? Jamie's heart raced. Could it be? The idea seemed ridiculous, but something in his gut told him he had to see for himself. The next morning, Jamie arrived at the barn early, his hands trembling with anticipation. The trailer pulled up just as the sun crested the horizon, bathing the barnyard in golden light. The air was heavy with the scent of hay and anticipation. When the horse emerged from the trailer, Jamie's breath caught in his throat. It was older and thinner, and its coat was duller than he remembered. But there was no mistaking the animal's presence. The chestnut coat, the intelligent eyes despite the years. It was the same horse. Jamie approached cautiously, his voice barely a whisper. "Is it you?" The horse turned its head toward him, its ears flicking at the sound of his voice. For a moment, their eyes met, and Jamie felt the same surge of connection he had felt all those years ago on the battlefield. But then the horse stepped back, its body tense as if it didn't recognize him. Jamie stood frozen, his emotions a storm of disbelief and longing. Could he rebuild the bond with the horse that had once saved his life? Or had time and trauma erased their shared past forever? The barn was silent except for the soft rustling of hay as Jamie stood face to face with the chestnut horse, his heart pounding in his chest. The memory of their shared past collided with the reality in front of him. The horse, older and weary, stared at him with a mix of caution and disinterest. Its once bright eyes seemed clouded, and its body bore the marks of a hard life, scars from old wounds and a jagged patch of fur along its flank. "Is it you? You?" Jamie repeated, his voice breaking as he stepped closer. But the horse took another step back, its body tense and wary. Clara, the ranch's manager, approached cautiously, her boots crunching on the dirt floor. "That's Apollo," she said, her tone gentle. "Came in from a rescue a few days ago. They said he's been through a lot, abandoned after his service, shuffled between owners, and eventually left in a kill pen." Jamie swallowed hard, his throat dry. "Apollo," he murmured, testing the name. It wasn't the name he had known the horse by. It had been nameless on the battlefield, but something about it felt fitting, as if the horse's story was as mythic as the name suggested. Clara studied Jamie's expression. "You know him?" she asked. Jamie hesitated, unsure of how to put the gravity of their connection into words. "I think he saved my life," he finally said. "Years ago, in the war." Clara's brows lifted in surprise, but she said nothing, sensing the weight of the moment. Over the next few days, Jamie spent every spare moment at the barn, determined to reconnect with Apollo. He brought apples and carrots, sitting quietly by the stall and speaking softly, recounting stories from their shared past. "You pulled me out of hell," he said one evening, his voice thick with emotion. "I never thought I'd see you again." Apollo, however, remained distant. He would eat the treats Jamie offered, but kept his head low, avoiding eye contact. It was as if the horse had closed itself off from the world, unwilling to let anyone in. Clara observed from a distance, her heart aching for both man and horse. "He's been through so much," she said to Jamie one afternoon. "It might take time." Jamie nodded, though the frustration in his eyes was evident. "I just want him to know I'm here," he said, "that he's safe." One evening, Jamie decided to try something different. He brought a worn saddle blanket to the barn, the same one he had carried with him during the war. The fabric was faded and frayed, but its scent carried memories of long nights in the trenches and the steady presence of Apollo. By his side, Jamie draped the blanket over the stall door and stepped back, watching Apollo's reaction. The horse lifted his head, his ears flicking forward as he sniffed the fabric. For the first time, there was a flicker of recognition in his eyes, a spark of something familiar. Jamie's chest tightened as he stepped closer. "You remember, don't you?" he whispered. Apollo turned his head toward Jamie, his body language softening slightly. It wasn't much, but it was a start. The breakthrough gave Jamie hope, and he doubled his efforts to rebuild their bond. Each day, he worked with Apollo, leading him around the paddock and brushing his coat. Slowly, the horse began to relax, responding to Jamie's voice and touch. One afternoon, Jamie brought a small radio to the barn and played a song that had been a constant during their time in the trenches, a melody that soldiers used to hum to calm their nerves. As the familiar tune filled the air, Apollo lifted his head, his ears swiveling toward the sound. Jamie watched, his heart swelling with emotion as the horse let out a soft nicker. Clara, who had been watching from the barn door, smiled. "You're breaking through," she said. Jamie nodded, his eyes never leaving Apollo. "It's like he's coming back to me." But the journey was far from over. While Apollo showed signs of trust, there were moments when he would freeze, his body trembling, as if haunted by ghosts of the past. Jamie recognized the signs of trauma. He had lived them himself and knew that healing wouldn't come overnight. One evening, as Jamie prepared to leave the barn, Apollo let out a soft nicker and nudged his shoulder. Jamie froze, a lump forming in his throat. "You're starting to trust me again, aren't you?" he murmured, stroking the horse's neck. As Jamie and Apollo began to rebuild their bond, news arrived of a special event honoring war horses and their veterans. Would this be the final step in their journey of healing, or a test that could bring old wounds to the surface? The early morning sunlight poured into the barn, casting long golden streaks across the floor. Jamie had arrived earlier than usual, eager to spend more time with Apollo before the ranch began its daily routine. As he gently brushed the horse's coat, the rhythmic strokes seemed to calm both man and animal. Apollo leaned into the touch, His once tense frame now relaxed. "You're looking better every day," Jamie said softly. "I think you're starting to remember." The quiet moment was interrupted by the sound of boots on gravel. Clara entered, holding a letter in her hand, her expression a mix of excitement and hesitation. "Jamie," she said, "this came for you." Jamie wiped his hands on his jeans and took the letter, frowning as he noticed the official-looking seal on the envelope. "What is it?" he asked. Clara shrugged. "It's from the National Warhorse Honor Association. I think it's about Apollo." Jamie tore open the envelope and scanned the letter, his eyes widening as he read. "You and Apollo have been nominated to participate in the annual Warhorse Recognition event. This event honors service animals and their handlers, sharing their stories with the nation. We would be honored to have you join us." Jamie's stomach tightened. The idea of standing on a stage, sharing their story with a crowd, was overwhelming. He had spent years avoiding the spotlight, preferring the quiet solitude of ranch life. But the mention of Apollo, his bravery, and his service made Jamie pause. This wasn't just about him. It was about the horse who had risked everything to save his life. Clara studied his expression. "It's a big deal," she said gently. "Apollo deserves this." Jamie nodded, his thoughts racing. "I just don't know if he's ready," he admitted. "He's come so far, but being around that many people, in a new environment, it could be too much." Clara placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You'll know what's best for him, but maybe this is the next step for both of you." For the next few days, Jamie wrestled with the decision. He spent hours with Apollo, observing the horse's progress and searching for signs that he could handle. The trip, Apollo was more responsive than ever, following Jamie's lead and even nuzzling him affectionately after their sessions. One evening, Jamie sat in the paddock with Apollo, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The horse grazed quietly, his movements steady and peaceful. Jamie reached out and ran a hand along Apollo's neck. "What do you think, buddy?" he asked. "Should we do this?" Apollo lifted his head, his ears flicking toward Jamie's voice. He let out a soft snort, his gaze steady despite his blindness. Jamie chuckled, taking it as a sign. "All right," he said. "Let's show them what you're made of." The weeks leading up to the event were filled with preparation. Jamie worked tirelessly with Apollo, introducing him to new sounds and situations. To help him acclimate, Clara and the ranch staff were supportive, offering advice and encouragement. As the day drew closer, Jamie glanced back at the trailer and murmured, "We've got this." The event venue was grand, a sprawling arena filled with banners and displays honoring war horses and their contributions. Veterans and their animals filled the grounds, creating an atmosphere of camaraderie and respect. Jamie guided Apollo through the bustling crowd, his hands steady on the lead rope. The horse's ears flicked at the sounds, but he remained calm, his trust in Jamie unwavering. As they approached the stage, an announcer's voice echoed through the arena. "Ladies and gentlemen, today we honor a horse whose bravery on the battlefield saved countless lives. Please welcome Apollo, accompanied by his veteran, James Callahan." The crowd erupted into applause as Jamie led Apollo onto the stage. The horse's head lifted, his ears swiveling at the sound. Jamie's heart pounded, but he focused on Apollo, who stood tall and steady beside him. Jamie took the microphone, his voice trembling at first. "This horse," he began, gesturing to Apollo, "is more than a hero. He's a reminder that courage and loyalty come in all forms. Years ago, when I was at my lowest, he saved my life, and now I'm here to make sure his story is never forgotten." The crowd listened in rapt silence, many wiping tears from their eyes as Jamie recounted their journey. When he finished, the applause was deafening, echoing through the arena like thunder. As Jamie leaned down to stroke Apollo's neck, the horse let out a soft nicker, pressing his head against Jamie's chest. At that moment, it felt as though their bond had come full circle. As Jamie and Apollo left the stage, a reporter approached with an unexpected proposition, one that could bring their story to an even larger audience. But would Jamie be ready to take the next step? Or was this the end of their journey in the spotlight? The sun hung low in the sky as Jamie guided Apollo back to the staging area, the applause from the arena still echoing in his ears. "Apollo, moved with calm confidence, his head low but his posture steady. Jamie's heart swelled with pride as he patted the horse's neck. "You did great, buddy," he murmured. Before he could gather his thoughts, a woman approached, her stride purposeful but respectful. She carried a notepad in one hand and a camera slung over her shoulder. "Captain Callahan?" she asked, her tone professional but warm. Jamie turned, his brows furrowing. "That's me." She extended a hand. "I'm Rachel Myers, a documentary filmmaker. I've been following today's event and your story with Apollo. It's extraordinary." Jamie shook her hand cautiously. "Thanks," he said, unsure of where the conversation was heading. Rachel smiled, sensing his hesitation. "I specialize in stories about veterans and their animal companions," she explained. "What you and Apollo have been through, it's the kind of story that could inspire millions. I'd like to feature you both in a documentary." Jamie's gut reaction was to say no. The idea of putting their journey on display for the world felt intrusive. But before he could respond, Rachel added, "It's not just about the two of you. It's about showing the world the impact animals like Apollo have. You could help raise awareness for other veterans and horses in need." That evening, back at the hotel, Jamie sat by the window, staring out at the darkened cityscape. The letter from the event organizers lay on the table alongside Rachel's business card. He turned the card over in his hands, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. Clara called to check in. "How's Apollo holding up?" she asked. "He's fine," Jamie replied. "Handled today better than I expected." "And how about you?" she pressed, her tone gentle. Jamie sighed. "A filmmaker wants to do a documentary about us. Says it could help others." Clara was quiet for a moment. "That's a big opportunity," she said. "But it's also a big commitment." "Yeah," Jamie muttered. "I don't know if we're ready for that." "Well," Clara said, "you didn't think Apollo was ready for today either. And look how that turned out." The next morning, Jamie took Apollo for a walk in a quiet park near the hotel. The horse moved slowly, his ears flicking as he listened to the sounds around him. Jamie spoke softly as they walked, sharing his thoughts aloud. "They want us to tell our story," he said. "But it's not just ours, is it? It's about everyone you've helped by just being you." Apollo stopped, his head turning slightly toward Jamie. As if listening, Jamie chuckled, running a hand along the horse's neck. "You always know when I need a sign, don't you?" By the time they returned to the hotel, Jamie had made his decision. He called Rachel and agreed to meet her for a follow-up discussion over coffee. She laid out her vision for the documentary, an intimate exploration of Jamie and Apollo's journey, interwoven with stories from other veterans and their service animals. "It's not just about the war," Rachel said. "It's about healing, connection, and the incredible resilience of both humans and animals." Jamie nodded slowly. "All right," he said. "Let's do it." The months that followed were a whirlwind of filming and interviews. Rachel and her team visited the ranch frequently, capturing moments of Jamie and Apollo's daily life. They filmed Jamie leading Apollo through training exercises, brushing him in the barn, and sitting quietly in the paddock, sharing stories from their past. The most emotional scenes came during interviews with Jamie, where he spoke openly about the war, the day Apollo saved him, and the years of separation that followed. For Jamie, revisiting those memories was both painful and cathartic. Rachel also included interviews with Clara and other veterans who had met Apollo. During therapy sessions, their stories painted a vivid picture of the horse's impact both on and off the battlefield. As the documentary neared completion, Rachel invited Jamie to preview the final cut, sitting in a small screening room. Jamie watched as his story unfolded on the screen. The footage was raw and powerful, capturing both the heartbreak and the triumph of his journey with Apollo. When the credits rolled, Jamie sat in silence, his emotions swirling. Rachel turned to him, her expression expectant. "What do you think?" she asked. Jamie took a deep breath, his voice steady. "It's perfect," he said. "You told his story the way it deserves to be told." As the documentary prepared for its national premiere, Jamie received an unexpected invitation to speak at a major veterans conference about his journey with Apollo. Would he have the courage to step onto an even bigger stage? Or would this be the end of their public story? The days leading up to the documentary's premiere were a blur of activity. Rachel's team worked tirelessly to finalize the event, arranging for Jamie and Apollo to attend as honored guests. The premiere would take place at a packed theater in Denver, with veterans, filmmakers, and animal advocates from across the country in attendance. Jamie, however, felt a growing unease. As much as he believed in the documentary's message, the idea of stepping onto another public stage was daunting. He had spent so many years avoiding the spotlight, and now it seemed to follow him wherever he went. Apollo, on the other hand, seemed unfazed. The horse had grown stronger and more confident since the event at the arena, and his calm demeanor was a steadying presence for Jamie, reminding him of their shared resilience. 2 days before the premiere, a letter arrived at the ranch. It bore the seal of the National Veterans Association, and Jamie's heart sank as he opened it. The letter was an invitation to speak at an upcoming conference where leaders from the military, healthcare, and animal welfare communities would gather. "We would be honored," the letter read, "if you and Apollo would share your story, inspiring others to recognize the power of the human-animal bond." Jamie placed the letter on the table, staring at it as doubts swirled in his mind. Could he stand in front of such a crowd? Would his story even make a difference? Clara found him in the barn later that day, brushing Apollo in thoughtful silence. She leaned against the stall door, her arms crossed. "You've got that look again," she said. Jamie glanced up, raising an eyebrow. "What look?" "The one you get when you're overthinking something," Clara replied with a knowing smile. "What's going on?" Jamie sighed, his hand pausing mid-brush. "They want me to speak at some big veterans conference, share our story. I don't know if I can do it." Clara stepped closer, her voice soft but firm. "Jamie, you've already done the hard part. You faced your past, reconnected with Apollo, and shared your journey in the documentary. This isn't about you anymore. It's about the people who need to hear what you've been through." Jamie looked at Apollo, who stood quietly, his ears flicking as if listening. The horse had faced his challenges and came out stronger on the other side. Perhaps Jamie could do the same. The night of the premiere arrived, and the theater buzzed with anticipation. Jamie sat in the front row with Clara by his side, Apollo's presence represented by a framed photo on the stage. As the lights dimmed, Rachel introduced the documentary, her voice filled with gratitude for everyone who had contributed. For the next hour, Jamie watched as his story unfolded on the screen. Scenes of the battlefield, his struggles after the war, and his reunion with Apollo played out in vivid detail. The audience was captivated, their emotions evident in the sniffles and quiet gasps that filled the room. When the credits rolled, the applause was thunderous. Rachel stepped onto the stage, thanking the audience before inviting Jamie to join her. He hesitated for a moment, his nerves threatening to hold him back. But then he thought of Apollo, the horse who had never backed down from a challenge, and found the courage to rise. Standing on the stage, Jamie scanned the audience, his voice steady as he began. "This story isn't just about me or Apollo," he said. "It's about all of us, about finding strength in the face of adversity, and trusting that second chances are worth fighting for." The crowd hung on his every word, their expressions a mix of admiration and understanding. Jamie spoke from the heart, sharing not only his gratitude for Apollo, but also his hope that their story would inspire others to seek healing and connection. After the event, Jamie was approached by countless attendees, each eager to share how the documentary had touched their lives. Veterans thanked him for speaking openly about his struggles, while animal advocates praised Apollo's role in the story. Jamie felt a sense of purpose he hadn't experienced in years. As he left the theater, Rachel caught up with him. "You were amazing," she said, "and I think tonight proved just how much your story matters." Jamie smiled faintly, his thoughts drifting to the letter from the conference. Perhaps it was time to take the next step. As Jamie prepared for the conference, an unexpected challenge arose, an opportunity to bring Apollo to the event. But transporting the aging horse across the country would be risky. Could Jamie find a way to ensure Apollo's presence, or would their journey together end here? The days following the documentary's premiere were a whirlwind. Jamie received messages from veterans, animal lovers, and families touched by his story with Apollo. Yet amid the accolades, one question weighed heavily on his mind. Could Apollo join him at the upcoming Veterans Conference? The logistics were daunting. Apollo's age and blindness made long-distance travel risky, and Jamie wasn't sure the horse could handle the stress. But as he stood in the barn one evening, brushing Apollo's coat, he felt the horse's steady presence and remembered everything they had been through. "You've always found a way," Jamie murmured, his voice soft. "Maybe we can find one more together." Jamie reached out to Clara, who immediately rallied the ranch team together. They devised a plan to ensure Apollo's safety and comfort. A custom trailer was arranged, equipped with padded walls and enough space for the horse to move freely. The trip would be slow, with frequent stops to let Apollo rest. But Jamie was determined. The morning of their departure was crisp and clear. Jamie led Apollo to the trailer, speaking softly as the horse hesitated at the ramp. "It's just another step," he said, "like the ones we've taken before." Apollo's ears flicked at Jamie's voice, and after a moment of stillness, he stepped forward, his trust in Jamie unwavering. The ranch staff watched with quiet admiration as the horse settled into the trailer, the culmination of weeks of preparation. The journey to the conference was long but uneventful. At every stop, Jamie checked on Apollo, ensuring he was calm and comfortable. The horse responded with quiet resilience, his trust in Jamie evident with every step of the way. When they arrived at the conference venue, Jamie was struck by the sheer scale of the event. The sprawling grounds were filled with exhibits, speakers, and attendees from all walks of life. In the center of it all was a large stage flanked by banners celebrating the bond between veterans and their service animals. As Jamie and Apollo walked toward the stage area, heads turned, and whispers rippled through the crowd. The sight of the aging blind horse and his veteran companion was a powerful reminder of the sacrifices and resilience shared by so many. The moment arrived for Jamie and Apollo to take the stage. The audience fell silent as Jamie led Apollo forward, his hand steady on the horse's halter. The bright lights and hum of the crowd might have unnerved another horse, but Apollo stood tall, his presence commanding respect. Jamie stepped to the microphone, his voice steady as he began. "This horse saved my life," he said simply, "and now he's saving it again." The audience listened intently as Jamie recounted their story, from the chaos of the battlefield to their unexpected reunion. He spoke of Apollo's courage, his own struggles with PTSD, and the healing power of their bond. "Apollo may be blind," Jamie said, his voice thick with emotion, "but he's taught me to see the world differently, to see hope where I thought there was none." As Jamie finished, the audience rose to their feet, their applause thunderous, tears streaming down their faces as the weight of his words settled over the crowd. After the event, Jamie and Apollo were approached by countless attendees, each eager to share how their story had inspired them. A young veteran, holding back tears, said, "Hearing you speak, it makes me believe I can get through this too." Jamie smiled, his hand resting on Apollo's neck. "If this old guy can do it," he said, "so can you." That evening, Jamie sat with Clara in the paddock, watching Apollo graze under the setting sun. The conference had been a success, but more than that, it had solidified Jamie's belief in the power of their bond. "Do you think he knows?" Clara asked, her voice soft. "How many lives he's touched?" Jamie watched as Apollo lifted his head, his ears flicking at the sound of their voices. "I think he does," Jamie said, in his own way. "He's always known." As the sun dipped below the horizon, Jamie stood and walked toward Apollo, resting his forehead against the horses. The world around them faded, leaving only the quiet understanding between man and horse. Their journey had been long and filled with challenges, but it had also been a testament to the unbreakable bond forged in the face of adversity. If this story of resilience and unbreakable bonds touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with others. Together, let's spread the message of hope and second chances.